All right, let's dive in. For centuries, ancient prophecies have talked about this one figure, a master of deception, someone who can supposedly manipulate power and even twist reality itself. Today, we're taking a closer look at the Dajjal, a figure many of you might know better as the Antichrist.
Now, everything we're talking about today comes from one specific source, Ahmad Thompson's book, Dajjal the Antichrist. And just to be super clear, our goal here is to simply unpack the ideas in that book. We're going to explore his arguments totally neutrally and look at how he tries to connect these ancient prophecies to, well, the world we see around us.
So the book obviously zeroes in on this one figure, a name that's basically become a synonym for deception. It all boils down to one huge question the author tries to answer. What, or maybe even who, is the Dajjal?
Okay, to even begin to answer that, we've got to start with the absolute basics. What do the prophecies and the name itself actually mean?
Well, the very first clue is right there in the name. The word Dajjal in Arabic, it means more than just to deceive or to cheat. One of its core meanings is actually to smear with tar. Think about that for a second. It's not just lying. It's about deliberately and thickly covering up the truth so you can't see what's underneath.
And this is where the book makes a really critical distinction. The Dajjal's full title is Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, which means the false Messiah. Now that's a direct intentional flip of another title, Al-Masih ibn Maryam, the true Messiah, who is identified as the prophet Jesus Christ. So right from the get-go, you've got this ultimate opposition set up. One is the real deal, the other is the complete opposite.
Okay, so probably one of the most famous descriptions you'll ever hear about the Dajjal is that he is one-eyed. But according to the author, we shouldn't just think of this as a physical thing. No, he argues it's actually a super powerful symbol, a symbol for a worldview that's partial, skewed. A worldview that's just fundamentally missing the other half of the picture.
And that idea of a skewed worldview, it leads us right into the book's central argument. The author basically says, look, if you want to understand the Dajjal, you can't just be looking for a single person. No, you have to be looking for something, well, something much, much bigger. So the Dajjal is presented as having three interconnected parts, or maybe layers. First, you have the individual. This is the single charismatic leader that the prophecies say will appear one day. But, and this is key, that person can't just show up. They're preceded by a global system, a whole worldwide social and cultural vibe that kind of makes deception the new normal. And then, behind all of that, there's this third layer, an unseen force that's sort of quietly guiding the whole system.
And the author doesn't beat around the bush here. He directly connects this global system to symbols you've probably seen 1,000 times, like the all-seeing eye and the pyramid, the one labeled Novus Ordo Seclorum. The argument he's making is that this new order of the ages is the Dajjal system, right there in plain sight.
The order of operations here is absolutely critical. The book is super clear on this. The system has to be established first. It's like it has to build the stage, set all the rules, and get everyone used to the idea of deception, long before the star of the show, the individual leader, ever makes his grand entrance. Okay, so that's the big picture framework. But how does any of this abstract stuff actually connect to the real world? Well, this is where the author tries to draw a direct line from these ancient prophecies to things we might see, literally, every single day.
And that leads to what is probably the book's most provocative question, right? If this system really does have to come first, then what signs of it does the author claim are already out there, visible to us right now?
All right, let's look at an example. There's this one prophetic description that says the Dajjal will show you fire, but it will not burn you, show you water, but you will not be able to drink it. I mean, at first glance, that just sounds like a strange riddle, doesn't it? But the author offers a pretty modern take. The book argues that this is a dead-on metaphor for modern media and our communication tech. I mean, think about it. Our screens are constantly showing us these powerful images, the fire of war and conflict, the water of things we desire, but it's all just an illusion, isn't it? It's all untouchable pixels that we can see and react to, but can't ever truly experience.
And the book doesn't just stop there. It lists a whole bunch of other so-called signs that it claims have already come true. Things like the poor and the destitute build tall buildings. Women wear their clothes like a second skin so that they appear naked. A system of usury or interest that's so widespread that it affects everyone, even if they're not directly involved. A huge number of Muslims who are nevertheless powerless. And finally, people looking to the stars and horoscopes for guidance instead of trusting in God.
But get this, according to the author, everything we've just mentioned, those are just the minor signs. They're just the warm-up act, the prelude to what the prophecies describe as the 4 final major events.
And this is where we get to the prophesied endgame, the final sequence. So first, the individual Dajjal finally appears. Then, he's challenged by another prophesied leader, someone known as the Mahdi. This huge conflict all leads to the return of Jesus, who, the prophecy says, is the one who will defeat the Dajjal. And after all that, the final event is the appearance of a destructive force known as Gog and Magog.
So it seems like a pretty clear timeline, right? But just when you think you've got it all mapped out, the author throws in this huge philosophical curveball, one that kind of reframes everything we've just gone over.
This is kind of wild. Right at the very beginning of the book, the author puts in this disclaimer that says, and I'm quoting here, "This book is a work of fiction. It is only a dream of a dreamer." I mean, what do you do with that? It completely forces you to step back and ask, wait, is any of this supposed to be taken literally, or is this whole thing just one giant metaphor? And he doubles down on this idea with a quote from the famous mystic Ibn al-Arabi, who said, "Know that the whole creation is an imagination." So let's just follow that logic for a second. If all of reality is basically a kind of dream, well, then the Dajjal stops being just some political figure. He becomes the ultimate illusion, the biggest deception inside the dream itself.
So, what are we left with? What exactly is the Dajjal, according to this book's perspective? Is it a literal person from an ancient religious prophecy? Is it a political theory about some hidden global order? Or is it just a really powerful metaphor for all the deceptions and illusions we have to deal with in our modern world? In the end, the book doesn't give a final answer. It kind of leaves that question for you to think about.